Today's session, though, if we get to today's session, which you should all have a handout outline of, and notice I've called it Laws Governing Our Love of Self. Now, remember the last weekend that we had, I introduced the subject of God's laws, and it was quite sort of like a scientific discussion of those laws, rather than so much what we would classify as a religious discussion of those laws. So like the law of gravity, the law of aerodynamics and so forth, the physical laws, and then we went through some of the moral laws, and then we went through some of the spiritual laws and so forth, that all come together to actually govern your soul. Now remember, in the introduction we covered how these laws all operate, governing what happens to your soul. And then in the next session, remember we talked about the groups of laws that govern your love of others. In other words, how you love other people. Remember that? So for those of you that were present at that, we learnt a lot of things, didn't we, about how love is actually expressed. And you'll notice in that discussion, many of us probably felt quite surprised about some of the subjects we covered. Is that how when you walked away, how did you feel? I feel that most of you felt like, wow, there's a lot in loving somebody. And there's a lot of different parts to love. It's not just this feeling that we say we have, but there's actually a lot of parts to this feeling of love. Love has a lot of attributes and qualities that the majority of us often are not aware of, and not aware of for many years after we pass into the spirit world either. So we covered those laws of love in relation to others. Today's session is about covering the laws of love in terms of how it impacts upon our own treatment of ourself. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have in the universe today is that we don't really know how to love ourselves. And as a result of that, what happens a lot of the time, because we don't know how to love ourselves, we finish up getting into this situation where we treat ourselves quite badly in our interactions with other people. But we don't even know it. And then because we treat ourselves quite badly in our interactions, there are laws that are broken at the soul level that then mean we experience pain. So the majority of us end up feeling like love equals pain. Now you think about that in your own life. How many times have you thought yourself to be in love and yet had this terrible, painful feeling that you felt maybe with a breakup of a relationship, for example? Well, love in its purest state does not feel that pain. So if I'm feeling some pain, then it means that I'm breaking some kind of law of love, and there's an emotional reason inside of myself that causes me to feel the pain. Now, when you get to a condition of at-one with God, all pain about love disappears. So that's pretty good, isn't it? So it means that any relationship you could have in the future, no matter who it's with, family, parents, children, a husband or a wife or a partner, any relationship you could have, a business relationship, a work relationship, all these different types of relationships you could experience, none of them will cause you pain. But the basis of that is about how you display love towards yourself as well as towards others. Now, the reason why we covered others first is because most of the time, most of us have little problems in recognising our treatment of others, in the sense that we often have a lot of difficulty with our treatment of ourselves. Oftentimes what happens with the treatment of ourselves is we're either treating ourselves in a place where we feel we're better or higher than or more important than others, which is actually an unloving way to treat yourself as well as others. Or we believe ourselves to be lower and less than others. And so we have a lot of really strong emotions about being less than and unworthy of others. Now, either one of those states, feeling that we're more than others or feeling that we're less than others, is going to be a space where we're not loving to ourselves or others. And there is one particular principle that we need to remember in all of our dealings, and that's this principle. sacrificing myself to love another, and I'll put love in quotation marks because it's not real love here. Sacrificing myself to love another is not loving to myself or the other. So sacrificing myself to love another person is not actually loving to myself, and because it's not loving to myself, it's also not loving to the other person. Now, if you think about how much in your life you've sacrificed yourself in order to love another, and most of us have done that at some time, right? Sacrificed our desires, sacrificed our passions. We've not done the work we wanted. We've not done the schooling we've wanted, the education we wanted. We've not done the art we wanted or the music we wanted or all of those things in order to please somebody else. Every time we did that, we weren't loving to ourselves or to the other person. Right? And that's a basic principle we need to remember in all of our dealings with ourselves. As soon as you enter this process of sacrifice, you immediately create pain in your own life and in the lives of other people too, believe it or not. Because can you see, as soon as you sacrifice yourself, the other person's not getting you. They're getting a fictitious you. They're getting a you that's been modified to suit them. Now, some people will like that if they are not loving to themselves or to you, but other people, if they really want a close and truthful relationship with you, will be deeply saddened by that. Now, the kind of person that you want to have a relationship with in the end is the kind of person who wants to know the real you. But for many of us, we don't even want to know the real self. We don't even want to know the real me because we have these feelings of deep shame or other feelings that we have from our childhood about the real us. And so what we finish up doing is we modify ourselves in our presentation to others. So what we want to do today is have a look at these laws. Remember, they're the same kind of laws that we talked about in the session about sacrificing, in the session about the laws governing the love of others. These are the same laws. You'll find, in fact, when you look through the two outlines that I've prepared, they're the same headings pretty much. But this time we're looking at it from the point of view of ourselves. Now, there's a lot of spirits with us here today as well. Now, some of those spirits are in a state where they're actually feeling quite angry and upset with me, so you'll have to just bear with them for a bit as well. There are other spirits here who have a deep feeling that it's impossible to love themselves, and that's why they're here too. And many of us have brought along some of these spirits with us. And what I'd like to do is just acknowledge their presence and also ask that they can just stop projecting neediness emotions at yourselves so that you can feel your own emotions about the discussion. So that's hopefully what they'll do.